Now, I cannot stand when the media knows something is a lie, yet tells it to you anyway. When the media knows that the story that they are putting forward is not the full picture. You may have heard a version of these words over and over and over again, no matter what you watched, what you read, or what you listened to today. Roll the tape.
Path, which today saw Australia tank in the annual Climate Change Performance Index, ranked 58 of 64 nations overall and dead last on the leaderboard for climate policy.
Man up.
It's quite an embarrassing position, but unfortunately from our federal government, it is a well-earned position.
How is it that we keep getting reports where we managed to win the climate policy wooden spoon?
Australia should be joining the UK and the US and other industrialised, wealthy Western countries, but it refuses to.
Which has seen Australia ranked last for its climate policy.
A new report has ranked Australia last on the action to reduce emissions.
Blah, blah. You heard the same thing over and over and over again. Well, where is this report that declares we are dead last in the world? Well, there's a thing called the CCPI, the Climate Change Performance Index. Now, this is a very activist report that is so wild that it hasn't even given any countries in the world the ranks of 1, 2 or 3. First giveaway to any and every member of the media who talked about this story today. To quote from the report, if you actually bothered to read the report, or do you just read the report about the report that you read online? Yeah, probably. No country performs well enough in all CCPI index categories to achieve an overall very high rating. The first 3 positions in the overall ranking therefore remain empty. Now, if you're going to rank someone last, you have to rank someone first. But if you won't rank someone first, second or third, then of course it's a meaningless document. So what countries did make the list as being way better than Australia when it comes to climate change? Again, looking at their very own report, which I doubt anyone who did the reporting on this today in Australia actually read. If they did, the red lights would have gone off. Because at number 4 is Denmark, at number 8 is Morocco, and number 10 is India. Yes, India has apparently the 10th best record in the world right now when it comes to climate change. This is a country that doesn't have a net zero by 2050 position, but instead, as was announced by Prime Minister Modi, they're going net zero in 2070. Remember, the Flannerys of this world would have you believe it's all over within the next 10 years. There is a discussion happening right now in Glasgow about forcing all countries to come back next year with tougher targets for 2030. But India, according to the activists that put Australia at the dead last, that echoed all the way around the media today, say that India is in the top 10, a top 10 that doesn't feature a 1, a 2 or a 3. And a little reminder about the actual countries around the world and what they produce when it comes to carbon. Now, you know that, of course, you can't have 7 people on the planet without something happening to it. That's why climate change is real. Whether you like it or not, it is real. But you also have to be real about the size of Australia in the problem of CO2 emissions. Compared to China, the rest of the world, and a collection of other nations, we are 4/5 of bugger all. In fact, let's have a look at the wheel. And this, by the way, is from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Let's start at midday and work our way around, say, to the 3 o'clock, where the number 1 most polluting country is China, followed by the rest of the world, the developing countries. That gets us to about 6 o'clock. The United States is going to get us to, well, about 20 minutes to, then India, then Russia, then Japan, Germany, Iran, South Korea, Saudi Arabia and Indonesia, which gets us to, about 10 minutes to. Then Canada, Mexico, South Africa, Brazil, Turkey and Australia. Australia is just 1%. China is the best part of almost 30%. Yet which country got a very good ranking compared to the dead last Australia? Well, China apparently outranks Australia when it comes to climate change as well in this ridiculous, stupid activist report, which nobody bothered to read. Instead, they read the report about the report and then wrote their reports about that today that you listened to and heard and was shoved down your throat all day long. China, by the way, can emit in just 16 days what Australia produces in 1 year. Yet on this survey, they outrank Australia when it comes to climate change policy. Their rank, 37, despite the fact that they can pollute continuously and won't cap until 2030. Our max was 2005, and they're not planning to be carbon neutral until not 2050, but 2060. So in this report that I guarantee no one in the media actually read, they just read the reports about the report, Australia ranks 58th in the world. And the little bit that explains why Australia is so bad says things like this. The country's lack of domestic ambition and action has made its way to the international stage. The experts describe that the country's international standing has been damaged by climate denialism by politicians, refusal to increase ambition, and refusals to commit to international green finance mechanisms. Are you ready for the punchline? The experts who put this ranking together are not the CSIRO. The experts who put this ranking together are not the Bureau of Meteorology. The experts who put this together are not even the United Nations. These, if you bothered to read the report today, are the people who are defined as informing this report about Australia's position on climate change. The groups are Sustainable Business Australia, the Australia Institute, the Australian Conservation Foundation, and Doctors for the Environment. All of them are hardcore activist groups. That was the international expertise that informed the worldview on Australia when it comes to climate change. And the media was so freaking lazy today that they couldn't be asked downloading the report, let alone reading it, let alone going to the bit that is in the report that tells them where the information comes from. And you see, this is a huge problem that we have in the media. Now, it doesn't matter what the issue is. In this case, it's climate change, but take your pick, from the Russian collusion garbage that was being fed to you for years, or any other issue. They talk about misinformation a lot. This report is misinformation because it is not put together by anyone who is objective. It is put together by people who have already made their mind up, who have a long, sustained history of saying that Australia is not doing enough. And remember, Australia is not just the federal government, because every state and territory in the country has way longer than this year committed to things like net zero, like 2030, like 50-50 renewables. They refuse to fund or approve new coal mines in many places, definitely no coal-fired power plants. They are spending an awful lot of money on trying to build renewable infrastructure, all of which at times can frustrate because we know what works and what is the actual system that will keep the power and the lights on. But I take the time to explain this to you tonight because can you believe that after the ingredients that were baked into the cake were activist, once the cake was delivered and it was activist, guess who the media turned to today for interviews to react to the report but not tell anyone that these were the people who wrote the report?
Australia should be joining the UK and the US and other industrialised, wealthy Western countries, but it refuses to, and it runs cover for these other laggards as well. So instead of joining its forever friends, it's actually dragging things down, and that's the real problem.
This is a feedback loop of activism. Activism that produces something that the media can then start to report as independent fact. And then you get the activists back on to talk about the report that they helped write. Don't fall for the bullshit. I don't. And I'll call it out every night.